Chapter 1. The Arrival of the Golden Ticket. It was on a crisp autumn morning that Hercule Poirot received an invitation unlike any he had ever known. A slender envelope of cream-coloured parchment lay upon his polished mahogany writing desk, sealed, with crimson wax bearing the stylized emblem of the Poirot Theatre. A gilded mask entwined with laurels. Inside, a single card gleamed like a nugget of pure sunlight. To the incomparable Monsieur Hercule Poirot, we solicit your extraordinary talents to unravel a most baffling riddle. A single golden theatre ticket has appeared in our box office, granting admission to our upcoming gala performance of The Phantom of the Lyceum. Yet no purchaser claims it, and legend whispers that the bearer of this ticket will witness an event that may alter the course of theatre history. Pray join us this evening at 8 o'clock for the unveiling, and, if you will, the investigation. Yours, in hopeful anticipation, Lucius Wainwright, Managing Director, Poirot Theatre Poirot, his waxed moustaches quivering in delightful curiosity, summoned Captain Hastings with an urgent tap upon the little bell beside his tea-tray. Hastings entered promptly, his usual genial expression replaced by mild concern at the detective's summons so near the hour of luncheon. "Mon ami," Poirot began, laying the golden ticket between them. "This, I believe, represents a mystery of a most peculiar kind. A ticket of pure gold, unclaimed, anonymous, and yet promising wonders beyond imagination. We must attend." Hastings, staring at the card's lustrous surface, whistled softly. "A golden ticket? Why, this rivals all the puzzles of London's underworld. What wonders may await us inside that theatre?" "Precisely the question," Poirot said, fastening his bow tie with the utmost care. "Come, Hastings, we have no time to lose." By 7:30 that evening, Poirot and Hastings had traversed the gaslit streets of Covent Garden to stand before the Poirot Theatre's grand façade. The building, an opulent blend of Russian Baroque and Italianate styling, was draped in purple velvet banners, each bearing the same gilded mask that adorned the mysterious ticket. A small crowd of well-dressed patrons milled at the entrance, some clutching invitations, others swallowed by eager speculation. Inside the foyer, crystal sconces cast a warm glow upon marble floors and gilt mouldings. Hastings admired the sumptuous surroundings. "I dare say, Hercule, this theatre outshines most palaces I have seen." Poirot nodded, his little grey cells already at work. "Yes, but beauty often conceals secrets. Now, Hastings, we must present this ticket at the box office." They approached a mahogany counter, behind which stood a stern-faced cashier, Miss Enid Marchmont, her spectacles perched low upon her nose. She glanced at the golden ticket with equal parts reverence and trepidation. "Good evening," she said in a clipped tone. "May I see your invitation?" Poirot placed the card upon the counter. The cashier's violet eyes widened as she handled it with white-gloved fingertips. "Ah, yes. Mr. Wainwright requested your attendance. Please proceed to the Grand Circle." She nodded toward a sweeping staircase of scarlet carpet and golden balusters. "Thank you," Poirot said, inclining his head. Hastings followed, trailing the detective's dark frock coat in the warm glow. Ascending the stairs, Hastings murmured, "I wonder what legend surrounds this ticket. Something of a prodigy, perhaps?" Poirot's eyebrows lifted. "Or of peril? The invitation's wording, alter the course of theatre history, suggests more than mere spectacle. Prepare yourself, Hastings. We may find drama beyond the footlights." They reached the grand circle, where velvet seats faced the proscenium, arch-draped by a heavy burgundy curtain embroidered in gold. The audience murmured in anticipation. The faint scent of fresh-cut lavender lingered in the air. Poirot and Hastings selected their seats near the centre, affording a clear view of the stage and the side entrances where actors poised themselves behind gauzy wings. At precisely 8 o'clock, the house lights dimmed, and a single spotlight illuminated the footlights. From the wings emerged Lucius Wainwright himself, a tall man of silver hair and impeccable tailcoat, his demeanour one of graceful authority. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice resonant, "welcome to the Orient, theatre's gala premiere of The Phantom of the Lyceum. Yet tonight is no ordinary performance. As you know, a golden ticket has surfaced, an artifact of mystery, granting admission to one chosen guest. That guest, Monsieur Hercule Poirot, is among us. Monsieur Poirot, will you join me upon the stage?" A ripple of applause followed as Poirot, with the air of a master of ceremony, stepped from the shadows and stood beside Wainwright. Hastings sat forward, his mustachio twisting with pride. "Thank you, Mr. Wainwright," Poirot said, extending a hand to the director. "Your golden ticket is indeed singular. Now, let us uncover the riddle it carries." Wainwright smiled. "The riddle, Monsieur Poirot, lies in 3 promises encrypted upon your ticket. Upon it, you deciphered the first when you presented it in visible ink revealing the words, 'Behind the first mask, truth awaits.' I ask you now, where is the first mask?" Poirot lifted the ticket under a small ultraviolet lamp, presented by an usher. A faint outline of an ornate mask glowed near the lower corner, its shape echoing the carvings on the proscenium arch. Poirot tapped his temple. "The first mask," he said, "adorns this theatre above each archway. Only one among them bears a secret, perhaps a hidden panel or a marking." He rose and quietly excused himself to the side corridor, where he examined each miniature mask carved into the plaster. Hastings followed close behind, whispering, "Good heavens, Hercule! I've never seen you so eager before a play." Poirot paused beneath one particular relief. Its eyes seemed engraved with slightly deeper grooves. He pressed at a feather's tip and felt it shift. A tiny latch clicked, releasing a concealed compartment within the carving. Inside lay a small envelope of parchment, sealed in wax bearing the initials L.W. Returning to the stage, Poirot handed the parchment to Wainwright, whose astonished expression illuminated the footlights. "Remarkable," Wainwright murmured, breaking the seal. "A second riddle. When the chandelier's heart glows thrice, seek the silent stagehand. Monsieur Poirot?" The grand chandelier, resplendent with crystal teardrops, hung motionless overhead. Poirot raised his hand, and 3 small lights along its inner ring flickered once, twice, 3 times. A collective gasp arose from the audience. "Observe," Poirot said, "the manager's cue. The chandelier's trifling flickers point us to the silent stagehand, one who works unseen in darkness, guiding the play's devices." Wainwright nodded, addressing the audience. "The silent stagehand is, of course, the prompter, Miss Florine Drake, seated at her desk here in the orchestra pit. Monsieur Poirot." Poirot descended the steps to the pit, where Miss Drake sat behind a carved railing, her eyes downcast, as she clutched a slender baton. She looked up, startled at his arrival. "Miss Drake," Poirot began, "your baton signals cues without voice. You maintain the theatre's silent conversations. Yet you, I suspect, hide something more." She trembled as he took her hand gently. On her palm lay a third clue inscribed upon the golden ticket, in words that glowed beneath the ultraviolet lamp's light. "In velvet's fold, the final truth lies cradled. Await the rising of the crimson veil." Her fingers shook. "Monsieur Poirot, I did not wish to harm, but the theatre and Mr. Wainwright owed me more than applause." Poirot's gaze was both compassionate and firm. "Then you shall tell us your story. But first, place your baton within my hand." She handed over the slender rod, and he examined its tip. A hidden hollow within held a tiny rolled slip of vellum. Unfurling it, he read, "The golden ticket belonged to one who must be chosen. Yet each mask, each light, each silent cue was mine to command. Forgive me, for I sought to engineer a drama beyond the stage, one in which my injustice would be redressed." Miss Drake, tears streaming, whispered her confession. Wainwright had promised her promotion to assistant director, a promise he never fulfilled. She had clandestinely created the golden ticket to force his public attention, first by intriguing him, then by orchestrating his stage riddles to expose her grievance. She intended only to humiliate, not destroy, but the final production, she realized, would place her in peril. Poirot looked from Miss Drake to Wainwright. "Alas, Miss Drake, your artistry in crafting this riddle nearly led you astray. Yet truth has emerged. I trust Mr. Wainwright will show mercy." Wainwright stepped forward, his expression one of genuine remorse. He extended a hand to Miss Drake. "You deserved recognition, Florine," he said gently. "Your devotion has propelled our theatre for years. I beg your pardon for my thoughtless oversight. Will you remain at my side officially henceforth?" Miss Drake bowed her head, relief flooding her features. "Yes, monsieur." Poirot guided her back to her seat in the pit. He turned to the audience who had watched this revelation with rapt attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "we have solved the riddle of the Golden Theatre ticket. Yet its true moral lies not in hidden compartments nor masked clues, but in the power of recognition and fair reward. May this theatre henceforth bestow equal applause for the stars upon its boards and for those who guide them unseen." A standing ovation thundered through the house. The curtain rose for the final time, and the phantom of the Lyceum unfolded flawlessly, a testament to unity and restored trust. As the evening ended, Hastings and Poirot stood beneath the chandelier. Once more, Hastings shook, his head in wonder. Mon Dieu, Hercule! Another mystery that began with gold and ended in gratitude. Poirot smiled, fingers tapping his moustache. "Yes, Hastings, let every theatre know its greatest treasures are not gilded tickets or carved masks, but the faithful souls who labour in light and shadow alike." Together they departed into the London night, leaving behind a theatre reborn by riddle, redemption, and the gentle art of generosity. Chapter 2. Secrets Behind the Velvet Curtain. The morning following Monsieur Poirot's unveiling of the first riddles dawned grey and mist-laden over Covent Garden. Rain pattered against the tall windows of the Orient Theatre, as the great house prepared for a day of rehearsals. Yet behind the bright facade, a quiet tension buzzed among the company. Lucius Wainwright, the managing director, moved through the corridors with purposeful strides, his thoughts still heavy with last night's revelations, and with the knowledge that the golden ticket's third and final clue remained unread. Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings arrived at 10 o'clock, greeted by a silent stagehand who guided them to Wainwright's private study. The room, trimmed in burgundy damask and mahogany, appeared unchanged since their last visit, save for a single sheet of parchment lying atop the director's desk, inscribed in a striking copperplate hand. Monsieur Poirot, with a flourish more theatrical than usual, lifted the parchment beneath its ultraviolet lamp. The third clue gleamed in phosphorescent script. Beneath the crimson veil, where whispered secrets sleep, a final revelation awaits the bearer of gold. Hastings frowned. Crimson veil. That could be any stage curtain in this theatre. Precisely, mon ami, Poirot said, smoothing his cravat. But only one curtain bears the deepest red of luxury. The scarlet drapery in the ensemble's private dressing-room. There we must venture next. Wainwright rose from his writing table. The performers' quarters lie down this hallway, behind double doors marked Dramatis Personae. I will accompany you. They followed him down polished floors, passing the green room where Miss Florenne Drake, now restored to her post as prompter and assistant director, reviewed her cue book. She bowed with deference as they passed, her expression both guarded and curious. At the double doors, Wainwright produced a brass key and unlocked them. Within lay a narrow corridor of velvet walls and soft carpet, each door bearing a nameplate: Helena March, Philip Grey, Clara Wren, and so forth. At the corridor's end, the door marked Ensemble Dressing stood closed, its handle gleaming like burnished bronze. Poirot applied his keen eye to the door's crack, then steered Wainwright aside. Observe, Hastings. No footprints lead. Here from stage left, yet the drapery within shows a faint scuff. Hastings peered. So someone entered by stage right, or from above. Perhaps, Poirot conceded, but let us enter. Inside, the dressing-room was a swirl of costumes, wigs, and mahogany mirrors. The air smelled of powder, lavender, and damp fabric. At the far end hung the scarlet drapery, a thick velvet tapestry framing an alcove where performers changed into their masquerade ball attire. Poirot approached it reverently. Behind this crimson curtain, he murmured, the final secret lies cradled. He drew back the drape to reveal a small panel in the wall, its paint slightly mismatched. With a gentle push, the panel swung inward, revealing a narrow recess lined with purple silk. Within lay a slender cylinder of golden metal, ornate with filigree, the final artifact of the golden ticket's journey. As Wainwright stepped forward to retrieve it, Poirot raised a hand. Not so fast, monsieur. We must observe protocol. He produced a pair of white gloves and handed them to Wainwright, who slid his fingers within before lifting the cylinder. Inside was a rolled vellum scroll tied with a crimson ribbon. Hastings leaned in as Poirot untied the ribbon and unfurled the parchment. His moustaches twitched with delight as he read the final message. By wisdom earned and hearts laid bare, the golden key unlocks the path to unity. Bearer, let this hour bind us in trust, for the true magic of the theatre lives in shared truth. Silence fell as the meaning settled. Wainwright's eyes glittered. "A golden key," he whispered. "Not a literal key, but the key of revelation, united by this riddle." Poirot nodded. "Yes, monsieur. You have guided us through deceit, discovered the hidden grievances, and now stand poised to forge a new covenant of trust." He turned to Hastings. "Our task is nearly complete, but we must ensure the theatre honours this covenant." Wainwright stepped forward, raising his voice to those in the corridor. "Company!" His announcement echoed against the velvet walls. "Please, gather in the foyer. Monsieur Poirot has a final message for us all." Moments later, the entire troupe, actors, stagehands, ushers, technicians, assembled beneath the grand chandelier in the foyer. Rain streaked the windows behind them, a gentle drumbeat of renewal. Poirot, flanked by Hastings and Wainwright, held aloft the golden cylinder. The company watched him with rapt attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice clear and resonant, "last night a golden ticket brought me here to solve a mystery, a riddle of hidden grievances and masked confidences. Each clue led us to revelations of hurt, ambition, and neglect. Yet through confession and forgiveness, this theatre has discovered the true golden key, the unity born of shared truth." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Now, I propose that the Orient Theatre adopt a new tradition. Each season shall open with the reading of this final scroll, reminding all who enter that honesty and mutual respect are the foundation of every performance." A soft murmur of assent rose from the company. Helena March stepped forward, her voice steady. "I, for one, pledge to speak openly of my struggles and successes, so that no actor feels compelled to conceal their pain in darkness." Philip Grey nodded beside her. "And I vow to support my fellow artists on stage and off, that together we may create wonders unshadowed by distrust." Clara Wren raised her hand. "Ed's head electrician, I commit to transparent safety checks and open communication. No more whispered fears in the dark." From every corner, pledges emerged, stagehands promising honest reporting of mishaps, ushers offering open ears to patrons' concerns, costume mistresses vowing fair assignment of gowns and fittings. Even Miss Drake stepped forward, baton in hand. "I swear to share my cues and notes freely, that no silent burden may fester." At last, Wainwright took the cylinder and placed it upon a small pedestal in the foyer's centre, alongside the gilded mask emblem. Beneath it a plaque read, "Here rests the golden key of the Orient, a testament to the power of shared truth. May every voice, every heart be heard." Hastings clapped his hands, breaking the solemn hush. "Bravo! Let us celebrate with tea and cake." Laughter and applause filled the foyer as trays of refreshments appeared. Poirot allowed himself a rare moment of contentment as he sipped his tea, Hastings munching on a confection. "Mon ami," Hastings said, "I must admit, this was no ordinary mystery. It was a journey of hearts." Poirot tapped his moustaches in agreement. "Yes, Hastings, and as long as they keep the golden key here, this theatre shall remain a haven of trust and wonder." Outside the storm had passed, and streams of golden sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the Orient Theatre's facade. Within, the company prepared for the evening's performance, not merely of the Phantom of the Lyceum, but of the everyday drama of collaboration, honesty, and shared passion. And thus concluded the second chapter in the riddle of the Golden Theatre ticket. A chapter not of hidden compartments or cryptic inscriptions, but of voices raised in unity, pledges sworn in the glow of truth, and a theatre reborn beneath the soft light of renewed hope. Chapter 3. The Theft of the Golden Cylinder. The morning after the gala's declaration of unity, the Orient Theatre seemed to breathe an almost reverent calm. Sunlight filtered through the lofty stained-glass windows of the foyer, illuminating the newly installed pedestal where the golden cylinder, relic of the riddle of the Golden Theatre ticket, rested beneath its crystal dome. Actors, stagehands, and patrons paused each time they passed, offering a quiet nod of respect to the emblem that had come to symbolize honesty and fellowship. Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings arrived before breakfast, summoned by an urgent note from Lucius Wainwright. "Monsieur Poirot, a grave matter has arisen. Overnight, the golden cylinder has vanished from its pedestal. No alarm sounded, no glass broken. Attend without delay. Yours anxiously, Lucius Wainwright at the pedestal." Hastings surveyed the empty display with astonishment. "Mon Dieu, Hercule, the cylinder is gone!" Poirot crouched beside the glass dome, examining the grey marble beneath. "Note, Hastings, no fragments of glass, no loose screws from the dome's lock. Whoever took it did so without force." Wainwright, pale and trembling, approached. "I left it last night under the watch of Giles Harper. This morning he found the dome empty." Poirot rose. "Let us question Mr. Harper." He led Wainwright to the security console where Harper already stood, keyring in hand, face flushed. "Monsieur Harper," Poirot began, "what was your exact routine last night?" Harper swallowed. "I made my rounds at midnight, 3 and 6. Each time I checked the cylinder, then locked the foyer doors until morning." "Did you hear or see anything unusual?" Poirot asked. "No, monsieur," Harper replied, voice quivering. "The corridors were silent. The cameras record. No motion after midnight, unless the thief disabled them." Poirot tapped his temple. "Then we must inspect the control room." He, Hastings, and Wainwright ascended a narrow staircase to the surveillance hub. There, rows of small monitors displayed static images of empty halls. Hastings pointed to one screen labelled Foyer, Cam 3. Its timestamp ended at 11:57 p.m. "After that," Hastings noted, "the feed goes dark." Poirot studied the cabling beneath the desk. "See here, the HDMI cable has been unplugged. Someone knew exactly which camera to mute." Wainwright ran a hand through his hair. Who would have that knowledge? And why steal the cylinder now, when its purpose is fulfilled? "A key question," Poirot agreed. "Let us retrace the thief's path." He led them back down into the foyer proper, then to the side entrance leading backstage. Hastings noticed scuff marks on the plush carpet by the west wing doors. "These tracks lead this way," he said. They followed a faint line of grey dust, crossing the grand staircase's base and turning into the dim corridor behind the stage. The passage ran alongside the rehearsal rooms, lit by emergency sconces. At the far end, a narrow door bore no signage, only a small brass vent near the floor. Poirot knelt. "Hastings, fetch me the lighting technician's ladder." Hastings returned with a collapsible ladder. Poirot climbed and peered through the vent's slats. Beyond lay the props storeroom, its floor scattered with masks and torches. He removed the vent cover, revealing a padded interior of dark carpeting and a hinge latch. "Our thief crawled through here," Poirot said. A hidden passage between the foyer and the props room, known only to those intimately familiar with the theatre's blueprints. Wainwright's face paled. "My grandfather had this passage built for discreet scene changes. Only he and his stage manager knew of it. Now it seems that knowledge has been abused." Poirot examined footprints in the dust, a slim sole beside a heavier boot. 2 conspirators, one light-footed, one heavy. Each left traces we can follow. They reinstalled the vent and retraced their route into the props room. Masks hung on racks, trunks lined the walls. Over by the tiara display, Poirot discovered a drop of crimson paint on the polished floorboard, identical to the scarlet drapery of the dressing room. Hastings bent to inspect. "The same pigment as before." Poirot nodded. "Yes, our ghost of paint reappears. Yet this time it marks the heavy boot, not the ballet slipper. The heavier step belonged to someone wearing Wellington boots, perhaps Giles Harper, or Mr. Hose, the head carpenter." He tapped the floor. "I see also this faint indentation of leather. Size 10, heavy tread." Wainwright looked stricken. Mr. Hose's boots match that description. He works backstage, often in Wellington boots to haul scenery. "Then we must confront him," Poirot said, turning to Hastings. "But quietly. We want no further panic." They emerged into the scene dock, where giant rolled backdrops lay at rest. Mr. Edward Hose, squat and muscular, was sweeping sawdust from a crate. His boots, matted with grey dust, caught Poirot's eye immediately. "Jose?" Poirot called. "A moment, please." Jose set aside his broom, wiping his hands on his overalls. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, what can I do?" Poirot gestured to Jose's boots. "May I inspect your soles?" Jose hesitated, then lifted a foot. Poirot examined the tread and pointed to the dust lodged in the grooves. "Matched to the scuff in the vent crawl?" "Indeed, and the drop of red paint in the props room." Jose swallowed. "Listen, Poirot, I'd never steal from the theatre I've sworn to protect." "Perhaps you were pressured," Poirot said calmly. "Someone needed your bootprints to mask the true thief's identity." He turned to Wainwright. "Mr. Bramwell, did you authorize anyone to borrow Hose's passage after hours?" Wainwright shook his head. "No one, unless for urgent scene changes, but all such work stops at 10. "Then the accomplice used Jose's boots," Poirot concluded, "a device to misdirect us." He moved to a nearby rack of props and picked up a silver lantern, an antique stage lamp fitted with modern wiring. Its interior contained 2 small vials of flammable oil, rarely used except in one scene. Hastings eyed the vials. "Poison?" "No," Poirot said, examining them. "Rather a tool for another crime. Our thief likely intended to break open the crystal dome with a makeshift torch, then slip away unseen. He turned back to Hose. "You did not borrow these boots, but someone did, and they crawled through the vent to the props room. We must find who had both boot access and knowledge of the passage." "Only a few," Hastings added. "Harper, Sanders varsity. No, the caretaker, Mr. Giles Harper, and the electrician, Mr. Sanders, know the plans." Poirot tapped his moustache. "Let us speak with Mr. Sanders." He led them to the electrical workshop. Samuel Sanders looked up from a circuit board, eyes reddened from sleepless nights. Poirot confronted him directly. "Mr. Sanders, last night you admitted a fault in the foyer cameras. Did you also know of the hidden passage between foyer and props?" Sanders's brow furrowed. "I learned of it when installing new wiring last season, but I would never use it for theft." "Yet someone slipped through it with your knowledge," Poirot pressed. "Did you lend that information to another?" Sanders shook his head vehemently. "No, the only person I told was Miss Drake. She requested lighting access for her prompter's desk." "Miss Drake," Poirot echoed, retrieving his notebook. "Let us ask her." They returned to the prompter's pit, where Miss Drake sat arranging her cue cards. She looked startled to see them. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said softly, "did you descend through the hidden vent last night?" Miss Drake's lips trembled. I confessed my grievance with Wainwright publicly, but I did not." Poirot held up the silver lantern. "Yet this lamp, filled with flammable oil, was taken from the props room. Its wiring bears scorch marks inside, an attempt to create firelight. You knew of the passage, the security blind spot, and you wielded this lamp to break the display." She closed her eyes. "Yes, I wanted to steal the cylinder, not to profit, but to reclaim my secret journal, hidden inside it when Wainwright presented it. The golden cylinder held both scrolls and, in its cavity, a leather-bound book of personal notes, my criticisms of the management. I feared disgrace if it remained public." Poirot's gaze was gentle. "You acted out of fear for your reputation, not greed. But you endangered us all." Miss Drake bowed her head. "I am sorry." Wainwright stepped forward, placed his hand on her shoulder. "Your journal shall be returned here, your grievances addressed fairly, and the cylinder, once empty, shall again rest in its place, minus your private writings." Poirot nodded. "Let us return the golden cylinder, now purged of personal secrets, to the foyer, and let us seal the vent, so no hidden path may betray us again." They escorted Miss Drake and Sanders to the foyer, where Giles Harper had reinstated the glass dome. Poirot held his finger to his moustache as the cylinder was placed back in its velvet cradle, now void of any private contents. Hastings secured the dome's latch, while Wainwright oversaw the cleaning of the vent cover and ordered its permanent locking. Poirot addressed the gathered company once more. "Tonight, the golden cylinder will stand not as a hiding place for private fears, but as a beacon of shared trust. May all secrets laid to rest, and new ones never find a hiding place here." As the day's rehearsals resumed, the theatre felt lighter, its secret passage sealed, its cylinder returned, and its people wiser. Outside, the autumn sun broke through the clouds, shining on the Orient Theatre's grand portico. Hastings, looking up, remarked, "Mon Dieu, no more hidden vents for a while, eh?" Poirot smiled, gloved hand on Hastings's arm. "Indeed, Hastings. Let all doors open in sunlight, and may no cloak be needed to conceal the truth." Chapter 4. The Vanishing of the Golden Legacy. The morning after the theft of the golden cylinder, the Orient Theatre awoke in uneasy solemnity. Word of Miss Drake's confession had spread among the company like a faint wind through curtains. Drama born off-stage can sting as sharply as any line delivered under footlights. Yet even as the cylinder returned to its marble pedestal, gleaming once more beneath its crystal dome, a new alarm summoned Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings with all the urgency of a fire bell. At 8 o'clock, they found Lucius Wainwright, pacing the foyer, his silver hair gleaming in the soft gaslight, his usually immaculate tailcoat creased with worry. On the pedestal lay the cylinder, but its lid sat ajar, and the velvet lining had been disturbed. "Mon Dieu!" Hastings exclaimed. "They risked another theft." Wainwright beckoned them close. "It is worse. Last night, after the gala, our charity donations, coins and notes placed beside the cylinder, vanished. The money was kept in a locked cabinet hidden beneath the pedestal, its key sealed within the cylinder's hollow. Now the key is gone again, and the funds are lost." Poirot's aquamarine eyes narrowed. So, the cylinder was used once more to conceal a theft. Yet the dome shows no forced entry, and the cabinet's lock remains untouched. The key must have been removed from the cylinder without disturbing the dome. Hastings ran a hand through his hair. "Incredible! But who would—" "Someone with intimate knowledge of the cylinder's mechanism," Poirot said, "and someone who expected the donations to be placed here overnight, a schedule known only to those on the director's most trusted circle." They stepped closer to inspect the cylinder. Poirot pressed a hidden spring at its base, and the hollow cavity revealed itself. Empty. "Notice," Poirot murmured, "the inner catch shows no signs of forced tampering. The key's owner left it willingly. We must find that key, and then follow it to the missing funds." Wainwright ran a trembling hand over the cabinet's brass keyhole. "The cabinet stands locked. I used one of the cylinder's keys to secure it last night, before Miss Drake's confession. I left the cylinder on guard with Giles Harper, who found the breach at dawn." Poirot tapped his moustache. "Then we must question Mr. Harper again, but also the others who know the cylinder's secret. Mr. Sanders, the electrician, Mr. Gray, the technician, and Edward Bramwell, your cousin and provisional manager." Hastings nodded. "Shall we begin with the caretaker?" They found Giles Harper in the scene dock, polishing lanterns. At Poirot's gentle inquiry, Harper admitted that after Miss Drake's confession and the cylinder's return, he remained in the foyer until midnight, then made his final rounds. He did not touch the cylinder again, yet he recalled seeing Edward Bramwell loitering near the cabinet just before his last check. "Edward?" Wainwright's voice tightened at Harper's words. "He had no reason to handle our funds." "Then we shall confirm," Poirot said. "Hastings, come with me to Mr. Bramwell's office." They climbed the staircase to the director's suite, where Edward Bramwell, tall, impeccably dressed, yet pale, stood by his desk, glancing nervously at the window. "Monsieur Poirot," he greeted, voice unsteady. "To what do I owe this visit?" Poirot produced a silver tray. "Your hands, Mr. Bramwell." Edward extended his palms. Poirot's whitened gloves inspected them. faint smudges of copper and ink, no dust or paint. Have you handled the cylinder's key? Poirot asked. Edward's face flickered. I turned the key to lock the cabinet last night as arranged. Then I departed. Yet Harper saw you near the foyer just after midnight, Poirot said, and when the cylinder returned, the key was inside your coat pocket. Edward stiffened. It was there for safekeeping. I meant to return it this morning, but you needed the funds, Hastings interjected. We have word that the charity proceeds were not only missing, but deposited, a substantial sum, into an account bearing your name. Edward's shoulders sagged. I apologize. The theatre's expenses spiraled beyond our gala's contributions. We needed funds to repair the scenery loft after the arson. I withdrew the donation money, intending to repay it before dawn, before anyone noticed. Poirot's gaze was both grave and kind. Your aim was not personal gain, but restoration of the theatre you love. Yet honesty demanded you ask first. Edward bowed. I realize that now. I meant no betrayal, and I have left instructions to return the funds by noon. Wainwright entered at that moment. His expression softened at Edward's confession. Then all is not lost, Wainwright said. We shall proceed with repairs, and the charities will be made whole. Poirot inclined his head. Let this be a lesson to us all. Integrity must guide every decision, even under financial strain. At that moment, Mr. Sanders and Mr. Gray appeared, summoned by Hastings to confirm Edward's story. Each attested to Edward's late-night absence, and the logger receipts showing repairs scheduled for that same morning. Repairs, they themselves, had begun as soon as Edward provided the funds. With the funds restored and the cylinder's key returned, Poirot led the company once more to the foyer. He placed the key within the cylinder's hollow and watched Hastings close the dome. Mon ami, Hastings said softly, I hope this is the final time the golden cylinder serves more than its riddles. Poirot smiled. For now, Hastings. Tonight, we must ensure no more secrets lie hidden, only the spectacle of the theatre and the joy of performance. That evening, the Phantom of the Lyceum played to a sold-out house, its actors performing with renewed confidence. Between scenes, the curtain rose briefly to reveal the cylinder on its pedestal, secure, key in place, and a silent testament to the trials overcome. After the final bow, the company gathered under the restored spotlight. Wainwright stepped forward, voice steady. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I return not only the curtain's promise, but the theatre's pledge, that here every hand's gesture, every whispered word, and every golden riddle shall be met with courage and candour. The golden cylinder belongs to us all, and with it our shared trust. Applause thundered through the hall. Poirot allowed himself a satisfied nod as Hastings raised his glass of champagne in triumphant salute. Under the glow of chandelier and lantern, the golden legacy stood secure, and the Aureate Theatre, its lessons carved in every vault and corridor, embraced the future with open hearts and unshadowed souls. Chapter 5. The Phantom of the Ledger. The sun had barely risen above the rooftops of Covent Garden when Hercule Poirot received a second summons, this time not from Lucius Wainwright, but from Miss Florine Drake, now reinstated both as prompter and assistant director of the Aureate Theatre. A scribbled note lay pinned to Poirot's front door. Monsieur Poirot, I fear another covert drama unfolds within these walls. A ledger in my care contains an entry I cannot explain. A payment to an unknown benefactor, recorded in invisible ink. I beg you to investigate before this phantom figure brings the theatre to ruin. Florine Drake by 8:30. Poirot and Captain Hastings were at the theatre's stage door. Mrs. Cartwright greeted them with an anxious glance. Madame Drake awaits you in the prompt box, monsieur, she said. She insists no one else assist her. They followed a narrow passage beneath the stalls to the orchestra pit, then climbed a ladder into the prompt box. There, amid cue sheets and prompt boards, stood Miss Drake, her eyes pale beneath her powder. Monsieur Poirot, she began, extending a small bound ledger. I discovered this payment note while reviewing last season's accounts. Under ordinary, light, the entry vanishes. But under ultraviolet, I read, to GL, for services rendered, £500. I know no one with those initials, yet someone within our circle must have received this hush payment. And I suspect the golden cylinder itself was intended as a conduit. Poirot accepted the ledger and placed it under his portable ultraviolet lamp. Sure enough, a neat column in the back revealed the ghostly inscription. GL, Hastings mused. Could that be Mr. Gray, our technician? Perhaps, Poirot replied, or Mr. Lucas, the new accountant whose office abuts the archives. We must uncover which initials match. He closed the ledger and turned to Drake. Did you observe anyone near these accounts late last night? She shook her head. No, but I saw Mr. Lucas entering the accountant's office after midnight. He claimed he needed to correct a posting, but he refused to allow anyone to witness his work. Poirot's little grey cells twitched. Then let us begin with Mr. Lucas. He led the way through the dim corridors to the office, where Edward Lucas, a slender man of nervous countenance, sat at his desk beneath a single lamp. Mr. Lucas, Poirot began courteously, I understand you worked on the accounts last night. Lucas rose, his palms damp. Yes, Monsieur Poirot, a routine audit, nothing more. Yet in this ledger, Poirot said, placing it on the desk, an invisible ink entry appears under ultraviolet, a payment to GL for £500. Will you explain this? Lucas's shoulders slumped. Very well. Monsieur Wainwright discovered that a sponsor had contributed funds earmarked for emergency repairs, but then reneged. The money vanished. To preserve generosity, I borrowed £500 from my personal accounts, recording it here temporarily, to be returned once the sponsor fulfilled their pledge. Hastings frowned. You used invisible ink to disguise your advance? Lucas nodded. I feared Wainwright would reprimand me for exceeding my authority. I intended to erase the entry once the sponsor paid. But the ledger remained here, and Madame Drake found it. Poirot considered. Your motive was not personal gain, but expediency. Yet your secrecy nearly rekindled distrust. You should have informed management, Lucas bowed. You are correct, monsieur. I apologize. Before Poirot could reply, a sudden crash echoed from the storeroom. Hastings and Poirot exchanged a glance and hurried out. They found Mrs. Cartwright upon the threshold, gasping. The golden cylinder! It's gone again, she whispered. The dome smashed, the velvet lining ripped, nothing left but splinters. Poirot's jaw tightened. So a second theft, this time with violence, and likely by the phantom sponsor or their agent. He knelt to examine the shattered glass and splintered pedestal. Note the pattern of breakage. The dome was struck from above, with a blunt object, perhaps a rubber-capped butt of a prop, staff. He clutched a fragment of gilded handle. And see this residue, powdered beige chalk used for stage marking. Hastings leaned in. So, our thief wore chalked boots, someone on stage, not backstage. Precisely, Poirot said. We must inquire of the marking crew, and of Mr. Gray, whose digital system controls our lighting, but who also applied chalk to mark stage positions last night. They retraced their steps to the wings, where Samuel Sanders replaced bulbs, and Alistair Gray reviewed his tablet. Poirot confronted Gray first. Mr. Gray, did you last night mark the stage with chalk as part of your lighting tests? Gray's eyes widened. I chalked the footlight positions. Yes, but I removed it afterward. Yet chalk traces remain on the cylinder's stand, Poirot said. And you were absent from logs between midnight and 1. Gray paled. I was calibrating motors in the trap room, alone. I did not touch the cylinder. Then whose chalk is this? Poirot asked, touching Gray's pant leg, now smudged with faint beige dust, matching the residue. Gray stared. I stepped in paint dust by accident, forgot to clean it off, but I swear I did not break the dome. Perhaps, Poirot said, but you knew of the invisible ink payment to GL. Gentleman Lestrade, our sponsor's pseudonym, who demands his retainer. You feared exposure when Madame Drake questioned the ledger, so you struck first, smashing the cylinder to conceal both payment and thief. Gray's face crumbled. Yes, I was desperate. The sponsor threatened to withdraw his major investment if the theatre did not collapse in scandal. I feared ruin. Hastings shook his head. Mon Dieu, another misguided attempt at salvation. Indeed, Poirot said gently. Your confession spares further violence. Now you must restore the cylinder and the funds, and reveal the sponsor's identity. Gray nodded, tears in his eyes. I will. Back in the foyer, Poirot oversaw the reassembly. Sanders replaced the dome. Miss Drake smoothed the velvet lining, and Gray returned the cylinder to its pedestal, this time locking its key inside permanently. Hastings inserted the sponsors, check, now officially received, into the cabinet behind the scenes. Poirot addressed the gathered company. Tonight, the golden cylinder stands not only for unity, but for accountability. May we learn that the noblest intent cannot justify deception, and that every hidden debt must be repaid in daylight. That evening's performance unfolded in triumphant continuity. The Phantom of the Lyceum played to a hushed audience, each scene enriched by the company's renewed sincerity. When the final bow came, the company gathered around the cylinder, now circled by coins and notes, its dome reflecting 1,000 lights. As the applause echoed through the emptied theatre, Hastings sighed. I never thought a cylinder could keep so many secrets. Poirot patted his friend's arm. Secrets, my dear Hastings, are like misplaced footlights. They may lurk in the dark, but once they are illuminated, the stage can truly shine. And so the Orient Theatre's 5th chapter drew to a close. Another lesson learned under gilded footlights, another testament to the gentle power of confession, and another reminder that even a golden cylinder finds its true worth only when kept in the open. Chapter 6. The Masquerade of the Crimson Mask. Afternoon light slanted through the ornate windows of the Orient Theatre, tracing golden patterns on the polished oak floor of the Grand Circle. After the drama of ledger deceptions and the second theft, a fragile calm had settled. Rehearsals resumed at once for the evening's masked performance, an experimental prologue to the Phantom of the Lyceum, to honour the golden cylinder's restoration. Yet beneath the artistry and the gilded footlights, a new tension simmered. The arrival of a mysterious guest bearing a crimson mask slipped into the theatre unseen. Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings made their customary early inspection rounds. At 3:30, meeting Lucius Wainwright in the green room, Wainwright hovered by his desk, brow furrowed over yet another note. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, voice low, "I have just received this letter, slipped under my door." He handed Poirot a small parchment sealed with deep crimson wax bearing. The cipher C.M. Poirot broke the seal with delicate fingers and read, "To the bearer of the golden cylinder. The final test awaits under the crimson mask. Seek me at the West Wing box office at 6 o'clock, or the theatre's soul will unravel." Hastings whistled softly. "Another riddle, or another threat?" "Both, I suspect," Poirot replied. "The crimson mask must be literal, and the West Wing box office suggests our phantom sponsor or conspirator prepares a final gambit." He set the note aside. "We shall attend at 6. Meanwhile, Hastings, let us inspect the box offices for signs of tampering." They descended the staircase to the ground floor, where 3 box offices clustered beneath a painted frieze of mythical muses. Hastings tested each window's latch. One clicked too easily. A spring mechanism had been loosened. "Here," Hastings said. "The middle window. Someone has prepared an exit for a slip of paper or mask." Poirot peered at the latch. A simple sabotage to facilitate clandestine messages. Note also the faint smudge of rouge on the sill, crimson, like the mask's seal. He plugged a microscopic sample for later analysis. Returning to the green room, they found Miss Florine Drake waiting. Her eyes were bright with apprehension. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, "I have kept the ledger confession safe. But now I fear a broader conspiracy. The Crimson Mask, some say it belonged to a legendary actor who vanished decades ago, known only as the Scarlet Phantom. Legend claims he cursed the theatre before disappearing." She shivered. "If this is his heir, we face more than petty theft." Poirot nodded. "Legends often mask human motives, envy, ambition, revenge. Yet we shall treat this as a tangible threat. Come, Hastings. We must rehearse our roles as investigators." At precisely 6 o'clock, Poirot and Hastings took seats near the West Wing small box office, its ornate oak panel gleaming under a solitary lantern. Wainwright and Miss Drake joined them, as did Giles Harper in a discreet corner. The theatre hushed as a single figure appeared in the doorway, draped in a long cloak, wearing a crimson mask that concealed every feature. In one hand, the figure held the golden cylinder's key, now reclaimed by its true owner. a hush fell so complete that the creak of a distant floorboard echoed like a thunderclap. "Bearer of the key," the masked voice intoned, "you have proven your wit and your valour. Yet one final trial remains. Surrender the cylinder, or watch the theatre's light vanish forever." Poirot rose, bowing with suave formality. "You speak of darkness, yet fear discovery. Reveal yourself, sir, or madam, or at least your purpose. We offer you justice, not condemnation." The masked figure hesitated, then tossed the key onto the counter. The clink echoed hollowly. Prius, they stepped forward into the lantern's glow. The crimson mask fell away, revealing the stern features of Edward Lucas, the accountant whose invisible ink payment had sparked the second burglary. Gasps rang out around the box office. Lucas removed his coat, revealing traces of rouge on his collar. "Monsieur Lucas!" Wainwright exclaimed. "Why this foolish masquerade?" Lucas's face was pale, tense. "I sought only to protect this theatre, my home, from ruin. The phantom sponsor's threats, the missing cylinder, the vanished donations, all pointed to mismanagement. I feared only I could guard its secret, and in so doing I became its phantom." Miss Drake stepped forward, voice trembling. "But you tried to blackmail us with threats. Watched the theatre's light vanish. That is beyond protection." Lucas's shoulders sagged. "I was desperate. The donations were a lifeline. The sponsor's threat to withdraw threatened us all. I used the cylinder's mystique, the legend of the Scarlet Phantom, to distract from our financial woes while I sought a genuine benefactor. My final demand, to surrender the cylinder, was a bluff to force transparency. I never intended calamity." Poirot's gaze was firm yet kindly. "Your fear of exposure drove you to deception. But you have now stepped into the light. The final act of your drama is confession and restitution." Lucas bowed his head, tears glinting behind his spectacles. "I give up the cylinder, and I shall post the full accounting of donations, debts, and benefactor communications in the foyer by morning. I accept whatever judgment you deem fit." Wainwright stepped forward and clasped Lucas's shoulder. "Your loyalty is clear. We shall forgive, but only after we ensure the theatre's stability." At that moment, a gentle melody rose from the orchestra pit. Maestro Ricci's quartet, tuning for the evening's rehearsal. The strains of violin and cello filled the box office with hopeful notes. Poirot turned to the company gathered. "Ladies and gentlemen, the final riddle is solved. Let the golden cylinder remain as a symbol of unity, safeguarded by truth, not mystery, and let tonight's rehearsals proceed under open skies, free of fear." A wave of relief and applause swept through the box office. Lucas replaced his crimson mask on the keyring, this time as a token of his own hidden fears laid to rest. Hastings offered his arm to Lucas, guiding him back toward the foyer. As the masked man abandoned his disguise, the theatre exhaled a collective breath. The phantom of legend had become merely a mortal in need of mercy. That evening, the Phantom of the Quiche Lyceum played under unshadowed lights, every cue seamless, every player confident. When the final curtain fell, the chorus sang not of heartbreak or intrigue, but of hope reborn. Beneath the veil of night we trod, yet truth has lit our endless stage. with golden key and heart unshod, together we write the final page. J. The company took their bows. Poirot and Hastings slipped away into the London night, leaving behind a theatre once haunted, now redeemed, its greatest mystery laid bare, and its future shining as brightly as any footlight. Chapter 7. Echoes Beneath the Green Room. The afternoon sun slanted low through the high windows of the Orient Theatre, gilding dust motes that danced in the beams like tiny spectres of bygone performances. The quiet hush of a theatre between acts reigned in the corridors, broken only by the distant footfalls of a lone stagehand carrying a lantern. Beneath the polish and pageantry, however, a tremor of disquiet still lingered. Monsieur Hercule, Poirot and Captain Hastings felt it in their very bones as they made their way toward the illustrious green room, where Lucius Wainwright had insisted they meet without delay. "Ever since the Crimson Mask affair," Hastings whispered, "I've felt as though this theatre holds its breath. A single misstep, and it all could unravel again." Poirot inclined, his head, his little grey cells already weaving discreet patterns of suspicion. "Ah, Hastings, theatres are repositories of memory. Each footstep, each note carries echoes. We have laid many ghosts to rest, yet new ones stir in the shadows. Let us discover how." They entered the green room to find Wainwright pacing before an ornate fireplace, its hearth unlit and cold. Opposite him sat Miss Florine Drake, prompter and erstwhile conspirator, her fingers drumming anxiously upon the arm of her velvet chair. A small table held 3 cups of green tea, steam curling from each rim in ghostly tendrils. "Ah, Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," Wainwright greeted, his voice taut. "Thank you for coming so promptly. I fear we have received another communication." He handed Poirot a pale envelope, unsealed, with no return address. Poirot slid his monocle into place and read aloud. "Bravo to the Golden Cylinder's sea. Keepers, your truth now glows like candlelight. But the theatre's blood runs richer beneath this floor. Meet me where the haunting began, beneath the green room hearth, at 7 tonight. Come alone, or the final act will claim more than your secrets." Hastings's brow furrowed, again with hidden messages and threats. This truly is a stage of illusions. Poirot folded the note carefully. Notice the reference to the haunting. Could he refer to our first misadventure, the initial theft of the golden cylinder? He turned to Miss Drake. "Madame, where did you first encounter uncanny happenings in this theatre?" She exhaled slowly. "In the sub-basement beneath the green room. I once heard strange whispers there while retrieving extra cue cards. Few know that trapdoor leads down to an old rehearsal hall, unused for decades." "Then we must inspect that location," Poirot said. "But at present you all must remain above ground. Hastings, inform Mr. Wainwright that we shall attend alone. Miss Drake, ensure no one follows us." By 7 o'clock, Poirot descended the narrow service staircase behind the green room. Hastings lingered in the corridor above, ready to intervene. Poirot reached the final step, where a small brass latch opened a trapdoor set flush into the floor. He lifted it to reveal a shaft of worn stone steps descending into blackness. Lighting his lantern, Poirot climbed down. The air grew cool and damp. The walls bore traces of old paint and faded scrawls, markings by actors long since departed. At the bottom lay a heavy oak door, its surface scarred by time and disuse. Poirot pressed his ear to the door, hearing only the slow drip of water and the flutter of unseen wings. He eased the door open. Beyond stretched a low-ceilinged chamber, lined with wooden benches, and a solitary spotlight fixed to a crude rail. The room smelled of mould and powdered plaster. At its centre lay a small pedestal, identical in design, though smaller, to the green room's display, and upon it sat a piece of parchment. Poirot stepped forward, lantern held high. The parchment bore a single word, written in crimson ink. "Begone!" Beneath it a circle had been traced in ash. A chill breeze stirred within the room, as though the theatre itself exhaled. Suddenly, footsteps echoed above, the faint scrape of wood on stone. Poirot's heart quickened. He extinguished his lantern, drawing a small penlight from his waistcoat. Its pale beam revealed footprints in the ash. 2 sets, one booted, one slippered, leading toward a far corner. He crouched to inspect. The slipper print matched the size of Miss Drake's ballet flats. The boot tread resembled Giles Harper's, robust soles. A moment later, a muffled gasp resounded from the staircase above. Then silence. Poirot held his breath. A sudden clatter echoed from the far end of the chamber. Poirot advanced with cautious steps. There, half hidden behind a collapsed bench, he found the golden cylinder's lid, tarnished and smudged with velvet fibres. He retrieved it, noting fresh grease marks on its rim. The cylinder itself, however, was missing. With the lid in hand, Poirot retraced his steps. Suddenly, a figure emerged at the staircase landing. Miss Drake, her face drained of colour. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered fiercely, "you must leave now, before they return." "Madame," Poirot said quietly, "you knew of this chamber, and you set the stage for another theft." He paused. "But whose hand strayed into this dark? Yours or the caretaker's?" She shook her head. "Neither, believe me. I came to retrieve my misplaced cue cards, then found this note. I feared I was blamed again." She reached for the lid. "Take it. Hide it." Poirot placed it carefully in his pocket. "You speak truth, Florine. Yet the cylinder has vanished, and soon our conductor of mischief will make one final crescendo." He produced a small mirror and angled its beam through the doorway. At the top of the staircase, a dark shape emerged. A tall figure in a stage, cloak, face obscured. Poirot's penlight flashed, illuminating the silhouette for a heartbeat. The sharp profile and slender frame of Alistair Gray, the technician. Gray's eyes gleamed as he recognized them. He hissed a curse and bolted up the stairs. Poirot pursued. Miss Drake called after them, but Hastings's step sounded above, stemming the flight. In the corridor, Hastings intercepted Gray. With a gentle nod from Poirot, Hastings restrained him. Gray's mask slipped, revealing flushed features. "It was never my intention," Gray gasped, "to steal again, only to protect the cylinder from those who would exploit its mystery. My colleagues planned a new show, a dark spectacle beneath the stage, to charm high society investors with tales of haunted theatres. They needed the cylinder's legend to lure them, and planned an immersive performance in this very chamber. Poirot emerged, retrieving the lid from his pocket. "And you, sir, intended to prevent the final triumph of their scheme, but you nearly became its accomplice." He held out the lid. "Your misdeeds spring from noble motives, yet truth must prevail." Gray's shoulders drooped in relief and shame. "Yes, Monsieur Poirot, forgive me." Poirot nodded gravely. "Now, bring me your conspirators and restore the cylinder." They escorted Gray to the green room, where Lucius Wainwright, Giles Harper, and Edward Bramwell awaited with worried faces. Poirot recounted the scene. The phantom's final clash beneath the stage, the missing cylinder, the note in crimson ink, and Gray's confession. The company exchanged astonished glances. Wainwright turned to Gray. "You endangered lives and the theatre's future for a staged illusion. Yet your ingenuity and passion may serve us better if directed by truth." He offered Gray a hand. "Stay, but only if you swear allegiance to honesty." Gray clasped it firmly. "I do." A murmur of approval rose from the gathered company. Poirot stepped forward, addressing them all. "Ladies and gentlemen, the final act of this drama is not sabotage nor theft, but confession and unity. Let the golden cylinder rest beneath its dome, a symbol not of mystery, but of the shared trust that binds us. And let this hidden chamber remain forever closed, its haunted echoes transformed into the solid promise of transparency." As the company dispersed to the foyer, Hastings exhaled. "What a tangled web! But once again, Poirot, truth lights the way." Poirot's gaze returned to the trapdoor underfoot. He closed it with a decisive nod. "Yes, Hastings, in the theatre of life, every secret may lie in darkness, but only honesty grants us standing ovations." They ascended together, the footsteps echoing through the corridors. No longer whispers of dread, but the rhythmic drumbeat of renewal, guiding the Orient Theatre toward its next grand performance. Chapter 8. The Final Overture in Crimson and. Gold the Orient Theatre lay hushed in the early afternoon, its grand auditorium empty save for the afternoon sun's gentle rays, which danced upon the polished boards and gilded balconies. The final rehearsal for the Phantom of the Lyceum's closing performance commenced at 4 o'clock. Yet every player, technician, and usher moved with a quiet gravity born of the trials they had endured. The golden cylinder's guardianship had been restored, the phantom conspiracies unmasked, and the hidden chamber forever sealed. But the theatre still braced for one last crescendo of mystery. Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings arrived shortly before 3, summoned by Lucius Wainwright to discuss the evening's final arrangements. They found Wainwright in his private study overlooking the stage, his brow knit in concern as he consulted 2 ledgers and an array of letters from benefactors. "Mon Dieu," Hastings murmured, "you look as though the theatre itself faces bankruptcy." Wainwright sighed. The sponsor Lestrade, revealed as a local philanthropist, has withdrawn support until the theatre proves its newfound integrity. "We must fund repairs to the old trap room, finalize the costumes for tonight's prologue, and ensure the cylinder's dome remains unbroken, all by this evening's gala." Poirot folded his hands. "Then our part in this final overture is clear. We must secure both the theatre's finances and its reputation before the curtain rises, and I suspect there is one last piece of the puzzle remaining." "Indeed?" Wainwright asked, hope flickering in his eyes. "Yes," Poirot replied. "We know the conspirators were Mr. Gray, Miss Drake, and Mr. Lucas, each driven by fear of ruin. Yet one figure has remained hidden, the original phantom sponsor, L.W. Lestrade. I suspect one of these letters contains the crucial confirmation of his identity and terms." He beckoned Hastings closer. "Let us examine these letters beneath our little ultraviolet lamp." They spread the correspondence across the polished desk. Under normal light, each letter bore respectable stationery, yet under ultraviolet, only one revealed faint embossing, the initials LWL, hidden in the watermark of the final page. Hastings' eyes widened. "So, we have Lestrade's signature." "Precisely," Poirot said. "And here," he tapped another envelope's flap. "This letter outlines his conditions. A donation of £1,000, contingent upon annual performances sponsored by the Golden Cylinder's legacy. He demands transparency and an annual gala to foster young talent." Wainwright exhaled in relief. "If we honour that agreement, our finances and our honour will be secure. Then it is time to contact Mr. Lestrade," Poirot concluded. "May I suggest you send him this confirmation at once?" Wainwright nodded, already setting pen to paper. "I will dispatch my reply this evening, after the performance. But first, allow me to walk you through tonight's programme." He led them through the labyrinthine wings to the rehearsal hall, where actors were practising the masked prologue. Helena March stood in the centre, draped in a crimson cloak and wearing the legendary Scarlet Phantom mask. Her voice rang clear. "Beneath the velvet arch and golden light, our mirrored souls entwine in night's embrace." Philip Gray, costumed as the brooding protagonist, paused at her line, adjusting his voice for maximum dramatic effect. Hastings raised an approving eyebrow. "Magnificent, Madame March," Hastings said, "though I trust no phantom stirs tonight to steal your final bow." Helena smiled. "We are safe now, Captain Hastings, thanks to Monsieur Poirot." Poirot inclined his head. "Let us hope no further shadows cross this stage." He guided them to the lighting gallery, where Alistair Gray tested a final sequence of footlights, his earlier transgressions now redeemed by meticulous artistry. The dimmers glowed steadily under Samuel Sanders's watchful eye. Gray met Poirot's gaze and offered a small nod of respect. "Thank you for your guidance, Monsieur Poirot. I shall ensure these lights never fail." Poirot tapped his moustache. "A promise I trust you will keep." They descended to the orchestra pit, where Maestro Ricci conducted the overture's opening bars. The score soared, and the assembled company fell into place. At the final chord, the first act concluded. Poirot and Hastings rose and made their way to the royal box, reserved for distinguished guests. Among them, they hoped, Mr. Lestrade himself. At 8 o'clock, the house lights dimmed and the overture began. The audience, unaware of the political and financial dramas behind the footlights, leaned forward in their seats as the crimson-capped prologue commenced. Helena March, as the Scarlet Phantom, glided through a shaft of moonlight. Philip Gray answered her soliloquy in sweeping arcs of gesture and voice. The Golden Cylinder, displayed prominently at stage right on a small plinth beneath an arch, caught the spotlight's gleam, its polished surface reflecting 1,000 tiny stars. Midway through the scene, Wainwright, seated in the royal box beside, a tall gentleman in a neat overcoat, leaned toward Poirot and Hastings. He tapped the man's sleeve. Lestrade had arrived. Poirot rose and bowed. "Monsieur Lestrade, your presence honours us." Lestrade inclined his head, removing a crimson mask from under his arm. His face was wreathed in a kindly smile. "Monsieur Poirot, I trust you have confirmed my terms?" Wainwright held up the signed letter. "Yes, monsieur. The theatre pledges to uphold transparency and the annual gala tradition. Your donation will be released immediately upon tonight's successful performance." Lestrade nodded. "Then my confidence is restored." He turned to watch the scene, settling into his seat with evident delight. The prologue ended amid thunderous applause, and the curtain fell to admit the full company for Act 1. The performance proceeded with flawless precision. Masked dances, dramatic monologues, and haunting melodies that filled the house with rapture. Between Acts 1 and 2, a hush fell as Wainwright took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice steady, "I am honoured to introduce Mr. Lydon W. Lestrade, gentleman, philanthropist, and now our dedicated patron." Lestrade rose, bowing to applause. "Thanks to his generosity, the Orient Theatre's future is assured. May this evening be a testament to art's triumph over adversity." Lestrade nodded, returning to the wings amid heartfelt applause. Hastings grinned at Poirot. "A fine bit of theatre, Hercule. Real life surpassing fiction." Poirot smiled. "In truth, Hastings, tonight we have all played our parts. Director, actor, sponsor, and detective, each guided by honesty rather than deception." The final act unfolded under a halo of euphoria, the phantom's curse dispelled by the triumph of shared purpose. When the curtain fell on the Phantom of the Lyceum, the entire company emerged, actors, technicians, and patrons alike, bowing together beneath a cascade of cheers. Backstage, the cast and crew gathered for a final toast. Wainwright raised his glass of champagne. "To the golden cylinder, whose riddles led us through darkness into light. To Monsieur Poirot, whose little grey cells illuminate our path. And to each of you, whose courage and candour have restored this theatre to its rightful splendour." They drank deeply, voices mingling in laughter and relief. Even Giles Harper ventured a gentle "Hear, hear," and Alistair Gray grinned, wiping a tear of joy from his cheek. As the festivities wound down, Poirot and Hastings slipped away through the quieted corridors. Hastings paused by the sealed trapdoor beneath the green room, its lock now fitted with new steel plates and an unyielding clasp. "Well, Hercule," Hastings said, "another mystery laid to rest." Poirot tapped his moustache in satisfaction. "Yes, Hastings, and now the theatre may begin its true encore, not of phantom masks or hidden passages, but of open hearts and golden truths." They emerged into the crisp night air of Covent Garden, where the theatre's lights shone like a beacon of hope. As they walked home under the star-pricked sky, the final strains of the Phantom of the Lyceum echoed faintly from within, an enduring melody of redemption, unity, and the gentle art of speaking truth under the crimson and gold of the stage's everlasting glow. Chapter 9. Curtain Call for Unity. The dawn of opening night at the Orient Theatre glowed with promise. Outside, Covent Garden thrummed with its usual bustle. Vendors hawked chestnuts, hansom cabs clattered over cobbles, and well-dressed patrons drifted toward the gilded doors beneath the theatre's grand marquee. But inside those doors, something rarer than footlights awaited. The first full performance of the Phantom of the Lyceum since the trials of deception, sabotage, and redemption that had tested every heart beneath its vaults. Now, unified by truth and guided by shared purpose, the company prepared for its final act. Monsieur Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings arrived at 6 o'clock sharp, greeted by Lucius Wainwright in the foyer. The managing director's silver hair gleamed under the chandeliers, and his expressive eyes shone with relief and pride. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," Wainwright said, ushering them inside. "Tonight the theatre belongs not to any single performer or director, but to the unity we have forged. You have my eternal gratitude." Poirot inclined his head gracefully. "Monsieur Wainwright, it has been my pleasure to witness the resurrection of this noble stage. May tonight's performance stand as the grandest demonstration of the Golden Cylinder's promise." Hastings clapped Wainwright on the shoulder. "And may no more phantoms haunt these halls, only the ghosts of past applause." The Indiater were escorted to the royal box, flanked by Edward Lucas and Alistair Gray, two former conspirators now restored to honour. Each wore a small golden ribbon pinned over their heart, a silent badge of atonement and renewal. "Sit here, if you please," Wainwright directed, pointing to plush crimson seats offering a panoramic view of the stage. Hastings settled in, a grin of anticipation spreading across his face. Poirot took his seat with poised dignity, gloved fingers lightly tapping his cane. The house lights dimmed to a soft glow. A hush fell. From high in the lighting gallery, Alistair Gray's skilled hands coaxed pewter lanterns to life. The orchestra's tuning faded into a single note of anticipation. From the wings emerged Helena March, clad in her character's midnight cloak, stepping onto the stage with serene confidence. The audience held its breath as she raised her voice. "When love and fear entwine beneath the moon's pale glance, our hidden truths must waltz into the light and cease the phantom's dance." Her words hung in the air like fragile glass, and the orchestra's opening chords swelled to fill the house. Philip Gray joined her, their masked figures moving in a dance of shadows and shimmer. As the scene progressed, every footfall, every aside, glittered with renewed purpose. The cast's collective ordeal had distilled their art into a single luminous expression of unity. Midway through Act 3, as the Scarlet Phantom's apparition materialized in haunting silhouette, the Golden Cylinder made its final on-stage appearance. Lucius Wainwright himself stepped forward, placing the cylinder on a small pedestal beneath a lone shaft of spotlight. He addressed the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, this cylinder is more than a relic of riddle and post. It is a testament to what we achieve when we stand together. May its gleam remind us that, in life as in theatre, Honesty is the golden key. Thunderous applause erupted, echoing from balcony to orchestra pit. Poirot rose and applauded with genuine warmth. Even Hastings dabbed at tears with his handkerchief. The performance continued without interruption. Dramatic confrontations, whispered confessions, and the final denouement of love, triumphant over deception. When the final line rang out, "By truth unveiled and courage earned, the play is writ upon our hearts," the curtain fell amid a storm of cheers reminiscent of a tempest at sea. Yet the final mystery had one more act. As the cast gathered for their curtain calls, a single figure stepped forward from the wings. Miss Emily Talbot, the junior companion, turned. Archivist, holding aloft a gilded envelope addressed to all who guard the golden promise. Helena March, ever gracious, took Emily's hand and read the envelope aloud. Inside lay a proclamation. Henceforth, on this day each year, the Orient Theatre shall convene a council of all departments, actors, musicians, stagehands, and administrators, to renew their pledges of transparency, support, and creativity. May this annual council of the Golden Promise endure as the theatre's heartbeat. The company exchanged radiant glances. Gourmand applause roared once more, and Poirot rose to his feet, tapping his cane in salute. "Mes amis," he called, voice carried by hushed reverence. "You have witnessed a drama more profound than any penned upon these boards. One where truth overcame fear and unity triumphed over division. Let this annual council bind you ever tighter, that no future shadow may dim the brilliance you now share." The theatre erupted in celebration. Champagne corks popped behind the scenes. Laughter and tears mingled like sunlight breaking through clouds. Even the ghost of the Scarlet Phantom seemed banished, replaced by a collective spirit, indomitable and bright. As the company left the stage, Hastings nudged Poirot. "What a finale, Hercule! Your finest masterpiece yet." Poirot allowed himself a rare broad smile. "Ah, Hastings, the true art lies not in solving puzzles, but in uniting hearts. Tonight we have composed a final overture of fellowship, resounding far beyond these gilded walls." They lingered in the now empty auditorium, the echo of applause a gentle hum in the air. Poirot took one last look at the golden cylinder resting beneath its dome, the plaque glinting beneath the chandelier's soft light. "May this theatre's future be ever bright with hope and honesty," Poirot said softly. Hastings clasped his friend's shoulder. "And may every encore remind them of the gentle art that began with a single golden ticket." They exited through the stage door into the crisp night, the Orient Theatre behind them shining like a beacon of shared truth, and the final curtain descending upon a story of redemption that would echo in every heart for years to come. Chapter 10. The Epilogue of Gold and Truth. The morning after opening night dawned cool and clear over Covent Garden. Beneath a sky brushed with pale pink light, the Orient Theatre's facade gleamed like a treasure chest newly polished. The final performance of The Phantom of the Lyceum had drawn to a triumphant close, and with it the long season of intrigue surrounding the golden cylinder. Yet as the gas lamps extinguished one by one, a deeper light began to shine, the enduring glow of shared honesty and renewed purpose. By 8 o'clock, Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings stood once more in the silent auditorium, taking in the empty seats and the hush of curtains drawn. Hastings let out a contented sigh. Mon Dieu, Hercule, I never thought I'd see a theatre so transformed. The very air feels lighter. Poirot nodded, his gloved fingers resting lightly on his cane. Indeed, Hastings, we have witnessed the full arc of mystery, from the first golden ticket to the final council decree. Now the Orient stands not only restored, but reborn. He paused, eyes gleaming. And yet our work nears its true conclusion, to ensure this legacy endures beyond tonight. They made their way through the empty corridors to the green room, where Lucius Wainwright waited with Miss Florine Drake. Wainwright's silver hair caught the slanting light of the windows, and his face bore a calm joy. Drake, once conspirator, now guardian of candour, offered Poirot a cup of herbal tea. "Monsieur Poirot," Wainwright began, voice gentle, "it is thanks to you that the golden cylinder now stands as a symbol, not of secrecy, but of shared trust. We have instituted weekly councils, visible ledgers, and an annual gala to honour transparency. Yet I fear I cannot thank you enough." Poirot inclined his head. "Monsieur Wainwright, the theatre belongs first to its people. I have merely guided them to speak openly of their fears and hopes. Now, let us mark this new dawn with one final tradition." He turned to Drake. "Madam, will you read the proclamation once more?" Drake unfolded the gilded parchment unveiled. On opening night, henceforth, on this day each year, the Orient Theatre shall convene the annual council of the Golden Promise. All departments, actors, musicians, technicians, and administrators shall pledge anew their commitment to honesty, respect, and shared purpose. May the golden cylinder's light ever guide our steps. She raised her voice so even the distant wings might hear. Hastings and Wainwright joined in, repeating the oath. Poirot closed the ceremony with a gentle bow. May this pledge endure as long as this theatre stands. Later that afternoon, Poirot wandered the stage alone. The footlights remained cold, and the scarlet drapery hung silent in the wings. Yet he felt a warmth in the emptiness, a promise of future performances unmarred by hidden schemes. He paused at the pedestals where the golden cylinder once rested, now replaced by a simple plaque. Here the golden cylinder stood, embracing truth over mystery. He traced the lettering with a gloved finger, recalling each twist of fate that led to this moment. From the first cryptic invitation to the final revelation beneath the green room hearth, the theatre had tested its mettle and emerged unbroken. Hastings joined him, carrying 2 cups of tea. He offered one to Poirot. "A fine moment to reflect, don't you think?" Poirot accepted the tea, inhaling the comforting aroma. "Yes, Hastings, the final act is quiet, yet it speaks volumes. In every footfall and every note of applause, the Orient now celebrates not only art, but the courage to speak its own truth." They strolled through the empty stalls, lingering by the proscenium arch. The carvings of gilded masks gazed down upon them like silent sentinels. Poirot placed his hand upon one mask and whispered, "May no mask hide dishonesty again." That evening, the theatre hosted a modest reception in the foyer, attended by the cast, crew, and Andrew Lestrade, the benefactor whose generosity had restored the company's finances. Guests sipped elderflower cordial and sampled petit fours, laughter and conversation filling the marble hall once more. Lestrade, dressed in a tailored evening coat, approached Poirot with a grateful smile. "Monsieur Poirot, I thank you. The Golden Cylinders saga taught us that the greatest investment is trust. You have given us a gift beyond any sum." Poirot inclined his head. "Monsieur Lestrade, your belief in the Oriet's mission made this possible. Together, we have ensured that this theatre's future gleams as brilliantly as its golden symbol." Nearby, Helena March and Philip Grey embraced both Poirot and Hastings in warm greetings. They spoke of upcoming tours and possible revivals, their voices alight with excitement. Other members of the company circulated, offering tokens of appreciation. A hand-painted mask, a bound script inscribed with best wishes, a silver medallion engraved with the silhouette of the Scarlet Phantom. Even Giles Harper, once a scapegoat, now stood honoured as Master of Ceremonies, guiding toasts and coordinating the evening's programme with his characteristic grace. His presence capped the transformation of every conspirator into a champion of candour. As the reception wound down, Hastings found Poirot near the entrance, lantern in hand. "What now, my friend? Another mystery on the horizon." Poirot smiled, tipping his hat. "Not tonight, Hastings. The final mystery has been solved in the hearts of these people. Now, I think it best we let the curtain fall and allow the Orient to shine on its own." They stepped into the cool night, the theatre's doors closing gently behind them. Outside, the street lamps cast soft pools of light upon the pavement, and the air hummed with the promise of tomorrow's box office. Hastings exhaled in contentment. "It feels good to walk away from a solved case, doesn't it?" "Oui, Hastings," Poirot replied. "The greatest joy lies not in the chase, but in witnessing harmony restored." He paused, gazing back at the silent theatre. "Let us return to Baker Street, mon ami. Our next adventure awaits. But for now, let the echoes of this golden promise linger in our memory." And so, beneath the soft glow of Covent Garden's lamps, Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings departed, their roles in the Orient Theatre's final act complete, their legacy sealed in gold and truth, ready to illuminate every stage they might yet tread. Chapter 11. The festival of the Golden Promise a year had passed since Hercule Poirot first accepted the mystifying golden ticket, and in that time the Orient Theatre had transformed from a stage beset by secrets into a sanctuary of shared trust and creativity. On this crisp autumn morning, the theatre's grand doors opened once more, not for playgoers eager for the next run of the Phantom of the Lyceum, but for the inaugural gathering of the annual Council of the Golden Promise. Under the lofty dome of the foyer, gilded banners bore the theatre's seal, a mask entwined with a laurel, and beneath them the golden cylinder stood, its polished surface reflecting shafts of morning sunlight. In the hushed hush before the council convened, characters from every corner of the theatre world arrived in measured procession. Mrs. Cartwright, the housekeeper, whose steadfast courtesy had anchored so many crises, swept past with a clipboard of attendance sheets. Giles Harper, now titled Master of Ceremonies, guided a small ensemble of stagehands bearing trays of elderflower cordial and pastries. Miss Florine Drake, the prompter once driven to desperation, now wore a confident smile as she guided ushers. to their posts. Edward Lucas, the accountant who had risked reputation to mend the theatre's coffers, carried the ledger of transparency, its pages open for all to examine. Even Alistair Gray, erstwhile technician and redeemer of misplaced loyalties, stood by the control panels, ensuring that the lighting would honour the day's solemnity. Hercule Poirot, his cravat impeccably symmetrical, and his moustaches exquisitely waxed, arrived accompanied by Captain Hastings, who surveyed the scene with genuine delight. Hastings clapped Poirot's shoulder. "Mon Dieu, Hercule! Who would have thought a single ticket could kindle such a grand tradition?" Poirot's aquamarine eyes gleamed. "Ah, Hastings, it was never the ticket alone, but the courage to speak and the grace to forgive. Today we bear witness to that courage in every heart." At precisely 10 o'clock, Lucius Wainwright, now styled Managing Director Emeritus, ascended a small dais before the golden cylinder. Wainwright's silver hair and warm bearing commanded immediate attention. He raised his hand for silence, and the council assembled fell into respectful hush. "Friends of the Orient," he began, voice resonant with emotion, "1 year ago this morning, a single golden ticket set in motion a series of events that tested our resolve, our integrity, and our faith in one another. Today, we gather not to recall past mistakes, but to recommit ourselves to the values that have sustained us: honesty, compassion, and shared purpose. Let this cylinder, our symbol of the golden promise, remind us of the light we carry for one another." He stepped aside as a flourish of flute music drifted from the orchestra pit. Poirot rose and approached the cylinder. With deliberate care, he withdrew the slender glass dome and held it aloft. Each face in the foyer watched with solemn reverence. "La clé d'or," Poirot intoned, "et la vérité partagée." He placed the dome back upon its pedestal. "The golden key is shared truth." A gentle ripple of applause arose as Wainwright beckoned Mrs. Cartwright to read aloud the council's new charter, bound in crimson leather and embossed in gold leaf. "We, the company of the Orient Theatre, pledge our voices, our hands, and our hearts to the golden promise. To speak with candour, to listen with kindness, to uphold transparency in all our dealings, and to nurture one another's gifts in trust and respect." One by one, each member of the company stepped forward to place a white feather at the base of the cylinder, symbol of the promise newly born. Mrs. Cartwright laid the first, followed by Giles Harper, whose voice trembled only slightly as he recited the pledge. Miss Drake added her feather with a look of triumphant relief. Edward Lucas and Alistair Gray followed, their expressions solemn yet hopeful. Even the youngest stagehand, a shy apprentice named Lily Roscoe, offered her small plume with a grin of genuine pride. At last Poirot and Hastings stepped forward. Poirot's feather was the tallest, its quill catching the morning light. Hastings's was bent slightly, proof that even the sturdiest spirits bend in gentle acknowledgment of others' truth. As the final feather settled among its fellows, the foyer filled with a sense of completion. A circle drawn in feathery white around the golden symbol of shared conviction. Wainwright raised his glass for the traditional toast. "To the golden promise. May this council stand as the heartbeat of the Orient Theatre, steady and unwavering." Wine met crystal with a clear ring of affirmation. The council then dispersed to the rehearsal hall for the day's celebration, where tables laden with autumnal fare awaited. Honey-glazed pheasant, root vegetable potages, chestnut cakes, and steaming vats of cider. Laughter and conversation echoed against the vaulted ceilings as colleagues and friends mingled in easy camaraderie. Hastings found Poirot at a window overlooking the stage. The crimson drapery hung ready, and the marionettes stood silent in their racks, props prepared for that evening's final curtain. "Quite the fete, Hercule," Hastings remarked. "Do you imagine last year's conspirators would recognize this joyous company?" Poirot smiled, tipping his head. "Perhaps not, Hastings. Yet the greatest metamorphosis is not in appearances, but in hearts. Tonight's performance will be the first to benefit from the full glow of the golden promise. At 4 o'clock, the company convened on stage for the traditional gala performance, an abridged rendition of The Phantom of the Lyceum, followed by an original finale celebrating the annual council's spirit. Helena March and Philip Grey led the cast in a rousing prologue, their voices carrying upon the silence like a hymn of renewal. From riddle's dusk to promise's dawn, we stand united, fears withdrawn, our steps unmasked, our hearts laid bare. We claim the stage in open air. The audience, composed of loyal patrons, invited guests and local benefactors, rose in standing ovation, many wiping tears from their eyes. Bravo and encore echoes filled the air before the house lights fully illuminated the auditorium. Backstage, the final scene unfolded. Each member of the company advanced in single file to the footlights, placing their white feather upon a miniature replica of the golden cylinder. Under Maestro Ricci's gentle bow, the orchestra played a soft refrain, a lullaby composed by Alistair Gray in gratitude for a second chance. Poirot and Hastings watched from the wings, contentment etched into every line of their faces. Hastings nudged Poirot. Who would have guessed our finale would be so heartfelt? Poirot's moustaches twitched in pleasure. Yes, Hastings. We began with a golden ticket and a riddle. We ended with a council of souls, each pledged to honesty and fellowship. That is the true magic of the theatre. As the final note faded and the curtain swayed closed, Poirot allowed himself a rare moment of repose. He addressed the assembled cast and crew. Mes amis, tonight you have performed the most vital drama of all, the drama of trust. May the golden promise endure in your hearts through every performance, an eternal overture of truth. The company answered with one unified cheer, their voices mingling in a chorus of unbridled joy. Later, as the theatre emptied and the stars shone overhead, Poirot and Hastings strolled along the quiet streets. Hastings sighed happily. I dare say, Hercule, we have performed our greatest case yet. Poirot smiled, gloved hand on Hastings' arm. Indeed, Hastings. And as long as the golden promise shines at the heart of the Orient, no mystery can darken its stage again. Under the canopy of 1,000 city lights, the two friends walked on, leaving behind a theatre reborn, its final act not a mystery, but a testament to the enduring power of shared truth and the gentle art of forgiveness. Chapter 12. The final. Bow of the golden ticket autumn's first chill had settled over London by the time the Orient Theatre prepared to close its season with a final flourish. The grand foyer gleamed beneath crystal chandeliers. The scarlet carpets shone unblemished, and every plush seat in the auditorium awaited its last occupant. For once, there was no lingering sense of dread, no furtive whispers behind masks, no cryptic messages slipped under doors. The golden ticket's journey had run its course, and the theatre stood united in confidence, ready for its ultimate encore. From the moment the doors opened at 6 o'clock, well-wishers, critics, and loyal patrons poured in, each greeted by Mrs. Cartwright's warm welcome and Giles Harper's ceremonious flourish. Ushers handed out roses, one for each guest, and programmes detailing not only the Phantom of the Lyceum, but also a retrospective gallery of the season's pivotal moments, reproductions of Lady Arabella's first golden ticket sketch, photographs of the secret vault beneath the Peacock Staircase, and clippings from local papers celebrating the annual Council of the Golden Promise. The golden cylinder itself stood once more at centre stage, its dome polished to perfection. A single white feather perched atop as a symbol of the theatre's enduring unity. In the royal box, Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings settled in too, their seats alongside Lucius Wainwright, Edward Lucas, Florine Drake, Alistair Gray, and a host of others who had played crucial roles in the season's dramas. Poirot's aquamarine eyes sparkled with delight. "Ah, Hastings," he murmured, "we have reached the final bow. May it resonate long beyond this theatre's walls." Hastings grinned. "Mon ami, after our many adventures, I look forward to an evening of pure performance. No sabotage, no hidden passages, no invisible ink. Just the richness of drama." At precisely 8 o'clock, Maestro Ricci raised his baton, and the orchestra launched into Mendelssohn's overture. The audience fell silent as crimson velvet curtains parted, revealing the set of The Phantom of the Lyceum in all its Baroque splendour. Gilded arches, painted clouds, and a grand staircase reminiscent of the Peacock Staircase, but rendered in silver and sapphire tones. The cast, radiant in their roles, emerged into the footlights, each face alight with confidence, born of trust renewed. From Helena March's poignant aria to Philip Gray's commanding soliloquy, the performance unfolded seamlessly. Every cue landed true, every prop held firm, and every chorus rang with the clarity of voices unburdened by fear. Midway through Act 2, a single spotlight illuminated the golden cylinder nestled in an alcove on stage, a dramatic reminder of the object that had tested them so. Helena's character paused in her lament to gaze upon it, her voice quivering. "Lost relic of promise and of dread, you shine anew where once you fled. May all who glimpse your golden light find courage in the darkest night." At that moment the audience stirred, drawn into the play's deeper meaning, that every object, every mask, every token can carry both doubt and hope, depending on the hearts that bear it. As the final curtain fell on the Phantom of the Lyceum, thunderous applause erupted. The cast returned for multiple bows. The orchestra rose in triumph, and even backstage the company wept with joy. Into the hail of bravos, Wainwright stepped forward to address the house one final time. "Ladies and gentlemen," he called, voice rich with emotion, "it is not merely the artistry you applaud tonight, but the spirit of unity that has sustained us. From the moment that Golden Ticket first glimmered in the box office to this closing bow, we have learned that honest hearts can overcome the darkest scheming." He gestured to the golden cylinder, which now stood encircled by dozens of white feathers placed there by cast and crew as a final pledge to the annual council's principles. May this symbol remind us all that in life, as in theatre, our greatest strength lies in shared truth. The cheers that followed felt less like applause and more like a communal exhalation, a release of every lingering tension, every doubt, laid to rest. Poirot and Hastings joined Wainwright on stage, forming a line with the company as they took their final bows. Poirot lifted his cane in salute, his moustaches quivering with satisfaction. Hastings, ever the scene-stealer, tipped an imaginary hat to the audience, his grin broad and heartfelt. Backstage, the company gathered for the customary closing night banquet. Elegantly set tables laden with pheasant, root vegetables, chestnut tarts, and flasks of golden cider. Conversation flowed freely. Laughter pealed from every corner, and even the orchestra members, loosened from their strict rehearsal discipline, joined in song. Poirot reclined in a high-backed chair, his eyes dancing as he surveyed the joyful tumult. Hastings clapped him on the shoulder. "Hercule, I've never enjoyed closing night more." Poirot smiled. "Ah, Hastings, the true satisfaction of a mystery solved lies in seeing peace restored, not only to a case, but to every heart involved." At that moment, Lucius Wainwright approached, holding a leather satchel. He presented it to Poirot. "You, monsieur," Wainwright said, "a small token of our appreciation." He opened the satchel to reveal a miniature golden cylinder, crafted of silver and engraved with a dedication to Hercule Poirot, Keeper of Truth, from the company of the Orient Theatre. Poirot's eyes softened. He lifted the tiny cylinder and traced the inscription with a gloved fingertip. "Mes amis," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I am honoured. More than this gift, I cherish the knowledge that the Orient stage will stand ever bright with honesty." Hastings raised his glass in toast. "To the golden cylinder, may its promise endure beyond every final bow." The theatre's faithful echoed his toast, their glasses chiming in harmony. As the banquet wound down and the last guests departed into the London night, Poirot and Hastings strolled through the empty foyer once more. The golden cylinder's plaque gleamed at centre stage, now accompanied by the tiny silver replica resting in Poirot's pocket. Hastings sighed happily. "Shall we return to Baker Street, Hercule?" Poirot paused beneath the chandelier's warm glow, his hand brushing the pedestal as though bidding it farewell. "Yes, Hastings," he said at last. "Our time here has ended, but the lessons we have learned will guide us wherever we roam. The final curtain has fallen, but the story of the Golden Promise lives on." They stepped out into the crisp air, the theatre doors closing behind them with a gentle click. Covent Garden's gas lamps flickered in salute, and the city's hum resumed, a lullaby of countless stories unfolding in the night. As they walked away, Poirot's voice drifted back to Hastings in a whisper of contentment. "Another case concluded, Hastings, but the greatest mystery, how to keep our hearts open, remains an ever-living performance." Hastings laughed softly. "Then may we never leave the stage unprepared." And so, under the silvery glow of street lamps and stars, Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings departed the Orient Theatre for the final time, leaving behind a legacy of gold, truth, and the gentle art of a final bow well earned. Chapter 13. Lights Beyond the Golden Ticket. The world outside the Orient Theatre's doors had long since settled into its own nocturnal rhythm. Hansom cabs rattled across wet cobblestones. Gas lamps cast circles of warmth on the misty pavement, and the distant toll of St. Martin-in-the-Fields bells reminded Londoners of the hour. Inside, however, a different stillness reigned, one born not of absence, but of the season's final breath. Candles flickered in the empty auditorium, the last of the proscenium's footlights burned low, and at centre stage the golden cylinder rested beneath its crystal dome, untouched for the first time in many nights. Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings stood side by side in the wings, their silhouettes outlined by the proscenium's edge. Hastings brushed a finger across his jacket lapel, where the silver miniature of the cylinder, Lucius Wainwright's final gift, hung pride of place. "I must admit, Hercule," Hastings said softly, "it feels strange to see the house so silent." Poirot's aquamarine eyes surveyed the empty seats. "Yes, Hastings. For months these boards resounded with mysteries. A golden ticket, hidden vaults, phantom messages, stolen ledgers, and midnight masquerades. Tonight, the only drama left is the gentle lullaby of well-earned silence." They descended the concealed staircase from the wings and passed through corridors that had witnessed every twist of intrigue. The walls, once echoing with hurried footsteps and hushed conspiracies, now heard only their measured steps and the soft click of Poirot's cane. At last they entered the green room, now more a sanctuary than a stagehand's lair. Florine Drake stood near the fireplace, her hands cradling a cup of lavender mint tea. She offered them seats upon the plush settee that had once borne her trembling confession. "Captain Hastings, Monsieur Poirot," she greeted with a smile that held both relief and longing. "I wanted to thank you, personally, for guiding us through these storms." Hastings nodded, accepting a cup. "Madame Drake, without your courage to reveal the first riddle's truths, none of this would have been possible." Drake's eyes glistened in the firelight. "I have learned that a secret withheld often grows 1,000 times more damaging than any theft. I vow that the prompt book I guard shall be open to all who serve this theatre." Poirot inclined his head in approval. "An admirable pledge, mademoiselle. Honesty, once spoken, binds a company stronger than the finest rope." Across the room, Edward Lucas reviewed the ledger of transparency, its pages now annotated in bold ink and accompanied by visible ink entries. He looked up and joined them, closing the ledger with a decisive snap. "Monsieur Poirot," Lucas said, "I have rewritten every entry that was once invisible. From now on, all funds are accounted for under the public eye." Hastings grinned, a financial revolution in a single bound. Lucas laughed, then grew serious. "I owe you, and the theatre, my deepest thanks. I risked reputation to bridge a gap, and now I know the true bridge is trust." Poirot tapped his moustache. "Indeed, Monsieur Lucas, and when trust flows freely, even the smallest theatre can prosper like the grandest empire." Florine glanced toward the small doorway that led to the stage, anticipation in her posture. "Shall we take one last look at the golden cylinder before tomorrow's final council?" The group rose and followed her through the low-lit tunnel beneath the orchestra pit, ascending to the pedestal in the centre of the stage. There, under the softened glow of a single footlight, the cylinder gleamed like a venerable relic of both riddle and redemption. Florine removed the dome, lifting it with ritual kindness. Hastings and Lucas hovered beside her as Poirot approached, his cane tapping once upon the wooden boards. "Monsieur Poirot," Florine said, "would you place the final feather beneath its rim, so that no further secrets may take refuge within?" Poirot accepted the feather, a pristine quill bestowed at the annual council, and laid it gently atop the cylinder's base. The light caught its down in shimmering arcs. "In this feather," Poirot intoned, "we honour every promise upheld, every confession made, every bond forged. Let it stand eternal, a silent sentinel for all who follow." He replaced the dome with deliberate care. Behind them, the theatre seemed to exhale, its very heart now still and untroubled. The following morning, the annual Council of the Golden Promise convened one final time under the equally soft glow of autumn sunlight. The foyer was arranged in orderly rows of chairs, each set facing the golden cylinder's new home. An alcove in the vestibule, beneath a stained-glass window depicting the theatre's emblematic mask entwined with laurel branches. A new plaque rested at the cylinder's base. "Here rests the golden promise, a covenant of honesty, upheld through every trial. Let every feather remind us that truth is our guiding light." Florine Drake presided over the council, reading aloud from the crimson-lined charter as each department — costume, lighting, carpentry, orchestra, administration — reiterated its pledge. Even the diligent stagehands, once silent and unseen, spoke of open communication and shared stewardship. The final feather, placed that morning by Lucius Wainwright himself, completed the circle of white at the cylinder's base. Poirot and Hastings sat together, contentment glowing in their faces. Hastings leaned in to whisper, "Can we leave now, Hercule? Master Alistair's encore is surely endless preparations." Poirot chuckled softly. "Yes, mon ami, our final case here concludes not with a mystery, but with a ceremony of unity. Let us return to Baker Street, where quieter puzzles await." Amid warm farewells and heartfelt embraces, the two friends slipped away, leaving the Orient Theatre's staff to carry out the day's rehearsals with calm assurance. Outside, London's streets glistened with dew and promise. The city, too, seemed to sense a certain harmony, one born of honest exchange rather than enigma. Hastings paused at the stage door, tipping his hat to its ornate carvings. Poor old theatre, never again will it see such a carnival of secrets, I hope. Poirot regarded the locked door with a fond gaze. Perhaps Hastings, yet even an empty stage holds the slightest echo of every drama performed. Let us hope. Those echoes now carry only kindness and candour. They turned toward the carriage that awaited them, its driver doffing his cap in respectful greeting. As they climbed aboard, Hastings looked back one last time. "Goodbye, Orient," he murmured. "May your lights never dim." The carriage rumbled away into the awakening streets, leaving behind the theatre's solid silhouette against the pale sky. Within its walls, the golden cylinder rested silent, its years of intrigue sealed beneath crystal and feather. Outside, Poirot and Hastings journeyed home, two guardians of truth whose greatest encore lay not on any stage, but in the untroubled hearts of those they had helped to mend.